The illusion of being chosen. It always begins the same way, doesn't it? She looks at you, but it's not really you she sees. It's the man she imagines you could be, the potential, the possibility. You feel it in her gaze, that glimmer of hope, or is it something else? Is it a hunger? You think you're being seen, truly seen, but you're not. You're being sized up, evaluated. You're like a blank canvas, just waiting for her to paint her masterpiece. But here's the kicker, that masterpiece isn't you. It never was. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, he tried to warn us about this. And he didn't do it with soft, feel-good platitudes. No, Jung approached it with the sharp, almost surgical precision of a man who dedicated his entire life to staring into the deepest psychological parts of the human soul. His life's work was mapping what he called the unconscious, that vast, silent part of your mind that operates completely beneath your awareness. And in his exploration, he uncovered something truly unsettling about women. He found that women don't just fall in love with men, not in the way you might think. They fall in love with the idea of men, with a fantasy, with a projection. And the scariest part? Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. You might genuinely believe she's choosing you, but what she's actually choosing is the version of you she's meticulously crafted in her own mind. Think of it like a psychological puppet, designed to play a specific role in her personal movie. And the moment you stop sticking to that script, she doesn't change the story. She simply changes the actor. Jung gave this projection a name, the animus. This is the inner masculine image that resides within every woman. And when that animus is immature, undeveloped, or allowed to run wild, it transforms into a tyrant. It becomes this unseen force that pushes women to chase after dangerous men and inexplicably reject the good ones. It makes them argue without any logical reason, dominate without wisdom, and moralize without a shred of accountability. Jung didn't mince words here. He described it as a spiritual possession, a state where the woman herself becomes utterly unaware that her actions are no longer stemming from her own conscious mind, but from the shadowy grip of her inner masculine fantasy. And men, we fall for it every single time because no one ever taught us how to recognize it. We confuse being desired with being truly known. We mistake being chosen with being genuinely understood. We hang on to her every word when she tells us we're different, when in reality, we're just the latest face she's cast to fulfill a role she's been rehearsing since she was a little girl. And when that fantasy inevitably crumbles, when the mask finally slips, you're left feeling confused, utterly betrayed, and frankly, humiliated. You sit there wondering, what did I do wrong? But you didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped being a convincing enough actor in someone else's play. Jung's solution to this psychological drama was something he called individuation. This is a lifelong, often grueling process of becoming whole within yourself. And here's the brutal, uncomfortable truth, most men never even start that journey. We've been conditioned, trained almost from birth, to chase external approval, to constantly seek validation, to let women define our worth. And as long as you continue down that path, you'll keep playing the same role, over and over again, getting replaced every time the audience gets bored. Individuation isn't some glamorous self-help trend. It's absolutely brutal. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you've desperately tried to bury, the weak, the insecure, the broken bits. It demands that you stop blaming women for not seeing the real you and instead, start seeing yourself. Because here's what Jung understood, something most men will never grasp: you don't become a man by being chosen by someone else. You become a man by choosing yourself. You don't earn your worth through her affection or validation. You earn it by standing alone, fully awake, fully responsible for your own life, fully alive in your own skin. A man who has faced his own unconscious cannot be seduced by projection. He's no longer a puppet in someone else's fantasy. He becomes the undisputed author of his own reality. Jung observed that one of the greatest tragedies of modern men isn't that they're rejected. It's that they are so willing to mold themselves into whatever shape they believe will be accepted. You call it compromise. You call it partnership. You even call it love. But Jung had a different, far more precise name for it: self-betrayal. He warned that men who ignore their own psychic development become literal slaves to the feminine projection, bending themselves like wet clay into the shapes demanded by women who, ironically, don't even know their own true desires. You stop being men. You start being masks, smiling, nodding, agreeing, performing, until you completely forget who you were before you put that mask on. And women? Oh, they sense this. They sense it far more acutely than you could ever imagine. The very thing you believe will make her love you, your obedience, your predictability, your constant availability, often becomes the very reason she loses attraction. Why? Because the feminine instinct, as Jung taught, isn't drawn to comfort and safety above all else. It's drawn to mystery, to a certain element of risk, to the man she cannot fully define or control. The moment you make yourself entirely known, without boundaries, without a backbone, you don't become more lovable. You become invisible, disposable, replaceable. And yet, here's the profound paradox that keeps most men trapped in this cycle: you fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather lose yourself entirely than lose her. You'd rather live out a predetermined role than face the sheer terror of standing without applause, without external validation. But Jung taught that until a man truly embraces that solitude, he will never be free. He wrote that individuation is not a path for the faint-hearted because it demands that you die before you die. It means letting the false versions of yourself burn away, so that something real, something authentic, can finally emerge. But let me tell you something that almost no one wants to say out loud: individuation is lonely. Terrifyingly lonely. Because as you walk that path, you begin to see things you cannot unsee. You start to recognize the games people play, the masks they wear, the elaborate lies they tell themselves just to feel safe. And when you try to share what you see, what happens? They mock you. They call you cold, arrogant, too serious. They accuse you of being the problem. But you're not the problem. You're the mirror. And people, generally speaking, hate the mirror when it shows them something they desperately don't want to face. Jung knew this intimately. He spent decades studying patients who were absolutely terrified to confront their own shadow, the dark, rejected parts of their psyche they simply refused to acknowledge. And women, Jung warned, are often raised in cultures that actively reward them for avoiding that confrontation. They're often told they are pure, deeply emotional, naturally intuitive, and complete just as they are. But Jung didn't buy into that narrative. He wrote that the greatest danger to women was their unconscious animus, that inner masculine voice that speaks with false certainty, false authority, and a pervasive sense of false moral superiority. He cautioned that if a woman does not face and integrate this inner masculine force, she becomes a prisoner of it, constantly projecting it onto every man she meets. She blames them for the very war she refuses to fight within herself. And here you are, thinking you're her savior, believing you'll be the exception. You think that if you just love her hard enough, prove yourself loudly enough, perform well enough, she'll finally choose you for you. But that's not how projection works. Jung taught that projection is a thief. It steals reality and replaces it with a meticulously crafted illusion. And until both men and women wake up from that illusion, they are destined to repeat the same old tragedy over and over again. Each one blaming the other, never realizing they're both just dancing with shadows. And here lies the most ironic twist of all. The woman who once saw you as her shining hero will one day see you as her enemy. Not because you changed, but because you failed to fulfill the fantasy she projected onto you. And she won't even realize she's doing it. Jung called this psychological betrayal inevitable when neither party takes responsibility for their own inner world. You didn't lie to her. You didn't betray her. You simply disappointed an invisible character she invented in her unconscious mind. You were never him to begin with. And that's why she resents you, not for your genuine flaws, but for failing to live up to a myth she never even told you were hired to play. The trap of self-betrayal. Jung once made a profound statement: people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. And nowhere is this more glaringly true than in romantic relationships. Both men and women often enter them not as whole, complete individuals, but as walking projections, dragging their unlived fears, their unmet needs, and their unresolved childhood wounds directly into the arms of another person they barely understand. You might call it love. Jung called it possession. And like a man under a spell, you keep walking into the same trap, thinking, this time it will be different. But it never is. Why? Because you haven't yet asked the most terrifying question a man can ask himself: what if I am the one responsible for this pattern? You want to point fingers. You want to blame women. You want to call them manipulative, deceptive, shallow. But Jung, if he were here, would look you straight in the eye and ask, and why did you let yourself be chosen by that woman in the first place? You see, the man who refuses to confront his own inner world, his own feminine aspects, is destined to be a slave to hers. You are not a victim here. You are a volunteer. You chose to play the fool. You chose to be the actor in her private myth. Because facing your own emptiness, your own lack of wholeness, felt far more terrifying than playing a part in someone else's fantasy. And here's where most of you will probably stop listening. Because this is where the comfort ends and the responsibility truly begins. Jung didn't offer quick fixes or cheap solutions. He didn't give you 3 easy steps to alpha male greatness. What he gave you was the brutal, lifelong task of self-confrontation, of sitting alone in the silence of your own mind until the illusions you cling to start to crack, until that relentless voice in your head that whispers, "You're nothing without her," finally begins to die. And make no mistake, that voice will fight for its life. It will tell you that you desperately need her, that you are fundamentally incomplete without her, that no man can truly live without feminine validation. But Jung's work whispers something far more dangerous, something more liberating. It whispers that the man who can stand without her approval, without her applause, without even being needed by anyone, is the man who is finally free. Free from projection, free from constant performance, free from the crushing tyranny of living as someone else's idea of a man. And when you reach that profound place, you don't become cold or distant. Quite the opposite. You become real. You become rooted, grounded, fully alive in your own skin. And that is when, paradoxically, women will feel the most drawn to you. Not because you need them, but precisely because you don't. And you'll smile, not because you're heartless, but because you finally understand. You understand that she is on her own journey, too. That she must face her own animus, that she must wake from her own illusions. And you, my friend, cannot do that work for her. You cannot save her from herself. You can only do what Jung did. You can walk your own path so fearlessly that you become a living mirror, reflecting the truth back to everyone who dares to look. Most will turn away. But a precious few, a rare few, will actually thank you for it. And that, my friend, is the monumental difference between being loved for the role you play and being respected for the man you've become. The uncomfortable truth of wholeness. When that moment finally arrives, when you truly realize you don't need to perform anymore, you'll start to notice something strange. People around you will become profoundly uncomfortable. They'll sense it, even if they can't quite name it. The sheer weight of your authentic presence will unsettle them because you no longer fit into the predictable categories they use to feel safe. Jung warned that the individuated man is not welcomed by society. He is often feared, misunderstood, labeled as distant or arrogant. But the truth is far more threatening to the status quo. You have simply become untouchable, unbuyable, unmanipulable. Because you now see through the entire game. And here's where it gets almost darkly humorous. The very people who once begged for your attention, your validation, your approval, will now begin to resent you for not needing theirs. Women, especially those still possessed by the fantasy of the perfect man, will accuse you of being emotionally unavailable. They'll say you're too much in your head, too analytical, too distant. But what they really mean is that they can no longer control you. You've stepped off their stage. You've stopped reading from their script. And without that script, they simply don't know what to do with you. Because you've stopped being a character and started being a man. Jung once famously joked that the gods have become diseases. He meant that what ancient cultures used to call divine possession, modern psychology often calls neurosis. And make no mistake, men who are relentlessly chasing validation are, in a spiritual sense, among the most sick of all. You genuinely believe you're being romantic when you utter lines like, "I'd do anything for her," or "she's my everything." But Jung would shake his head and tell you that what you call love is actually a profound refusal to carry your own soul. It's far easier to project it onto a woman and make her the carrier of your hope, your meaning, your entire purpose. Because if she carries it, you don't have to. But here's the brutal twist. When she realizes she was never designed to carry your soul, she will drop it. She must drop it, because no woman, no matter how loving or devoted, can hold the weight of a man who refuses to hold himself. And when she drops it, you'll feel utterly betrayed. But you shouldn't. You should thank her. Because in that raw moment, when the illusion completely collapses, you finally stand face to face with the undeniable truth: the work of becoming a man was never hers to do. It was always, always, always yours. And in that raw moment of absolute clarity, you have two distinct choices. You can blame her. You can become bitter. You can join the angry chorus of men who point their fingers at women, mocking them, resenting them, swearing them off like cowards who never dared to face their own emptiness. Or, you can do what Jung would have demanded of you. You can turn inward. You can finally start the lonely, terrifying, yet utterly liberating work of individuating, of becoming whole without needing someone else to complete you. The path to true connection. Because the truth is, the woman you're constantly searching for out there, the one you believe will complete you, she's actually a reflection of the part of yourself you've abandoned. Until you face that part, until you integrate your own inner feminine, every relationship will be a performance. Every connection will feel like a transaction. Every love will ultimately be a lie. But when you do face it, when you finally integrate your own inner feminine, you transform into a man who no longer needs to chase women. You don't run after them. You don't manipulate them. You don't perform for them. Instead, you stand still, fully rooted in who you are. And from that deeply grounded place, something truly miraculous happens. You no longer attract women who are looking for a character to play a role in their fantasy. You attract women who are seeking the truth. And you'll know it when it happens, because she won't demand that you perform. She won't try to change your script. She won't fall in love with the fantasy of you. Instead, she'll stand before you, raw and real, not as some goddess looking for worship, but as a fellow human being willing to walk her own path beside you. No masks, no projections, no games. And when you meet her, the real her, not the fantasy, you'll see the difference instantly. She won't flood you with grand declarations or treat you like the missing piece of her puzzle. She won't try to seduce you with the language of completion, because she isn't looking to be completed. She isn't looking to be saved. She's already done the work. She's met her own shadow. She's confronted her own animus. She's burned through her own illusions. And that's why she won't need you to perform. She won't need you to carry her soul. She'll stand there, whole in herself, looking you in the eye, not as a man she wants to mold, but as a man she is finally ready to meet. And in that authentic meeting, there is no desperation. There is no clinging. There is no performance. There is only truth. And that truth, Jung taught, is the rarest and most dangerous kind of love. The kind that demands nothing but offers everything. Because it is not born of need. It is born of freedom. Freedom to choose, freedom to walk away, freedom to stand together without illusions, without masks, without fear. The unbecoming and the becoming. But let me warn you, most of you will never experience this. Most of you will quit before you get there. You'll settle for the performance. You'll settle for the fantasy. You'll settle for the temporary thrill of being seen as someone you are not, because facing who you truly are still feels unbearable. But if you have the courage, the brutal, gut-wrenching courage to keep walking that solitary path, to keep stripping away every false layer you've built to earn approval, you will eventually find yourself standing at the edge of something terrifyingly beautiful. You will find yourself. And when you do, women will no longer be the source of your identity. They will no longer be the mirror you use to feel like a man. They will become something else entirely: partners, not prizes; mirrors, not mothers; allies, not saviors. And you will love them not because you need them, but because you choose to. From a place of strength, from a place of wholeness. From a place that knows, without apology, exactly who you are. Carl Jung didn't leave you a simple map to follow. He left you a warning that every man who refuses to confront himself will become a slave to the projections of others, especially the projections of women. But he also left you a profound challenge, a challenge to walk the path of individuation. To stop blaming women for the roles you voluntarily play. To stop seeking wholeness in someone else's eyes. To stop waiting to be chosen. Because the man who chooses himself, fully, unapologetically, relentlessly, is the man who cannot be controlled by fantasy. He cannot be seduced by performance. He cannot be reduced to a character in someone else's script. He becomes the author of his own life. And if you've made it this far, if you felt this message hit somewhere deep inside you, don't just scroll away. Don't let this be another piece of content you consume and then forget. Take a moment right now to like this video. Share it with another man who needs to hear this truth. And subscribe for more. Your support isn't just for us. It's for the next man who's still living in the illusion, waiting to be set free. Help us spread this message. Help us wake up the world, one man at a time.